I think that in today's build, you guys are really going to see this lot come to life here and really see the full vision of what I'm trying to execute. And I feel like that's kind of the story of this entire SimCity project really is, is really watching my vision unfold here. And today is really no exception. So for those of you just discovering this space, my name is Michael, and I want to let you know that you have landed in Sovereign Sandboxing, the YouTube channel where we build, play, and reflect on games that let us shape our own story. And today, as I mentioned before, we are back in my SimCity project here, playing The Sims 3, and I am continuing on in part 2 of the speed build of, I guess I'm calling it the Cyberpunk block. I don't actually have an official name for this actual lot, I just have an address for it, but I might actually, I might decide to change it to an official name here, but for now I'm just calling it the Cyberpunk block because I am taking a lot of influences from Cyberpunk, and I've also taken, like I've mentioned in the first part, a lot of influences from Yukio's builds, both the Slum City and their own container home build as well. So those are serving as very important totems of inspiration for this build here. So yes, they do deserve another little shout out here. And their builds are pretty awesome as well, and reinterpreting it here in The Sims 3 has posed challenges like I have mentioned before. Those challenges really being that we don't have a whole lot of clutter objects, specifically clutter objects that are industrial themed or kind of offer themselves to those cyberpunk feels, but I really do make do with what we have here. So yeah, today we are building out 2 more buildings within this particular lot. And for those of you just kind of jumping into the middle of the series and haven't watched part 1, this is a late night style apartment. However, I am taking a lot of liberties and I will be using a lot of the public place markers to make a lot of these spaces actually available for your Sims to use publicly. So I have decided to go with that direction because I do want Sims to actually live on this lot, and no other community lot type was really fitting the bill here. So I decided to really stretch the limitations of the Sims 3 residential lots by making this one a residential lot, but furthermore making it a late night style apartment. So yeah, today's game plan is really building out 2 more buildings. In total, there are 6 structures that sit within this lot with a courtyard in the middle of it all. And I am very excited because these 2 structures really help to shape the vision that I was going for. I'm really happy with the way they turned out. Like with the first set of 2 structures, I was happy with the way that they turned out. Like there was still a vision there, but I just wasn't too sure whether this lot build was, I really wasn't too sure like how it was going to turn out in terms of quality. However, with these 2 structures that I'm building now, I am starting to make my way into masterpiece territory, if I dare say so myself, and you guys will definitely see why towards the end of the video here. The first structure that you'll see me work on here within this part is the northeast building, and the intention with that structure is to make it this really cool Ripperdoc / robotics laboratory. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the Cyberpunk 2077 universe, a Ripperdoc is essentially a doctor that installs chrome or cybernetic parts into a person, really making them into a cyborg, and they have enhanced abilities and all that jazz. Now, of course, we don't have that kind of gameplay within The Sims 3. However, we do have some really cool objects from the University expansion pack, and of course, we have robotics and being able to make simbots and all of that. So I figured that like this was the perfect opportunity to kind of introduce that kind of gameplay within this lot that actually makes sense here. And Into the Future as an expansion pack offers a lot of content, and the symbot creation process of it is actually something that I would say is very in-depth, although I've never really played it one for one within my own experience, as into the Future was an expansion pack that I had installed actually within the last 2 or 3 years. Like, it was shortly before I started doing this channel that I actually installed Into the Future. So, you know, it's a franchise that's pretty old, and I just recently got it, so I can't really, like, I should have played with the robotics a little more before really coming on here to speak on it, but I've never actually created my own Simbot and whatnot. But it seems very fun, very in-depth, and yeah, so I felt that it made a lot of sense to include that here, and I'll talk a little bit more about that a little later on in this video as we get deeper into the actual build of it. So with this structure, and I'm finding that with this build in particular, what I really have to do is I have to create the exterior first, which, you know, now that I say it out loud, is what I do with every build. But in this one, it was very, I very much had to pay close attention to what I want the exterior to look like and what the form I want it to take on as within this particular structure, and also within the other 6 structures that I end up building out. Speaking of which, I haven't finished this lot build yet, so there will be things in here that I am going to notice that I need to edit and all that jazz. But yeah, based on the inspirations that I was taking, both from Yukio and also from Cyberpunk 2077, of course there's a lot of metal, but there's also a lot of open space. And so I really had to be conscious of where I wanted the open space and where I wanted rooftop spaces and all of that, and where I wanted Sims to actually engage with. And so that was something that I really had to take into consideration. And honestly, I know I mentioned it in part 1, but the fences and the Cambodian blinds, you guys, these Cambodian blinds are seriously the best. They really came to my rescue to help me create that look and feel that I was going for in terms of it taking from those inspirations and having a more metallic and cyberpunk feel to it. You're going to notice that there are some streetlights in front of this lot, and unfortunately, like, I can't remove the streetlights because my create a world is busted. Now, for those of you that have been with this channel for a while, you'll know that this series actually started in the create a world tool. That was a tool provided by EA that allows us to do what its namesake suggests, and that is create our own worlds. And with that comes the ability to add and remove streetlights and everything. So yeah, if you're just joining here, everything you see is something that I've created. This is my own custom world, and of course it is available for download in the description box of this video. However, when I was in that project, tragedy struck, I suppose, and I guess I downloaded something that the Create a World system didn't like. My suspicion is the business as usual bistro, but you know, that's suspect number 1. But yeah, the Create a World tool didn't like that little download spree that I went on, and so it actually blocked me from using the edit in game function of it, which allows me to load up this game and edit it. And so that changed the trajectory of this entire series, because originally I was going to build out a neighborhood, build the lots for the neighborhood, and then, you know, continue building as the continue balancing this series between the Create a World tool and also doing lot builds. I know that Create a World probably would have never been able to support that because I have so many lots that I need to build out, and it's a tool that's very sensitive, to say the very least. However, I was still going to build the lots and balance things out, and just, you know, save the lots and upload them to the simfileshare.net website, which I have been doing this entire time. So that was the original plan with the series, but with the editing game mode not being a function that I'm able to use anymore, unfortunately I had to finish my world as quickly as I possibly could and start editing and start building the lots. What this really does is it doesn't enable me to tailor the world to suit the lots, because there's a lot that I would like to actually change within the world itself. First and foremost, like, now that I'm in the game and looking at my world, there are certain edits and collisions that I don't like that I need to edit. And then there's also lots like this that need to have the streetscaping tailored more for the lot rather than the lot conforming to the streetscaping. So if I still had access to the editing game mode and to the create a world tool, essentially, I would have knocked out at least one of those streetlights, probably maybe all of them, just on this particular side of the street within the world itself. So that's where it's kind of unfortunate. But this kind of opens up a conversation as to where I want to take this project and what I want to offer to you guys as the players. So due to the editing game mode not working for me, I am staying the course and I am building out all of the lots for this world first before doing any edits in the Create a World tool. Now, my reason for that is that it's easier for me to just download the lots that I've built, plug them into my world, and, you know, kind of take it from there if I need to make any changes. But what I really wanted to say is that I am planning to release a V1, like a version 1 of a save file of this entire world as soon as all of the lots are built. And yeah, so that is kind of on the game plan so far, is that I need to finish all of the lot builds and then I'll be releasing a save file. Whether that save file is populated or not remains to be seen, but I will cross that bridge when I get there. However, after doing that, I do plan to work on a version 2 of this in Create a World. And like I said, because I have been uploading all of the lots to the Sim File Share website, it is easy for me to just grab a lot, download it into my game if I need to, and then just plug it in for the V2 version of this world for when I'm ready to actually upload the V2 as a save file. I hope that's making sense to you guys. So yeah, there is a larger picture that is at play here, and I just wanted to take an opportunity to kind of talk on it, just because I haven't been very clear as to where I am taking this project, and that's because I truly didn't know up until now. So yeah, right now we are going to continue on with the lot builds, because those are, unfortunately, they are the most tedious part of this entire project. I also think that they are the most fun, because I get to actually explore the storytelling of each of the neighborhoods in a more detailed fashion. Speaking of which, like, some parts of this episode just has a little bit of the chaos from the first episode, in that we've got some parts of the first episode just finishing up the first couple of buildings there. I decided to keep that footage in because it tackles a lot of the foundational structures and a lot of the foundational parts of the the northeast building, excuse me. And so I didn't want to leave that out in case, I didn't want to leave that out because it would have just not made, it would have, it is essential to have in order for the rest of this episode to really make sense here. Just to also touch on another thing as well, you're going to see me periodically place in some apartments here and there. And of course, these apartments are going to get like a hidden marker placed on them, and I'm going to adjust the door so that it is an NPC door and all of that. There is a bit of a song and dance to that, as you know if you have worked with late night apartments, and that is the fact that you need to have that hidden room divided by a wall connected to a public room, or a room that has a public room marker dropped on it. And the game can be a little picky with that, and so you'll see me have to box off some of the front doors with a gate and a gate door. So that is what I had to do, and I'm sure that I spoke on this in the part 1, but the reason why I wanted to make sure to add in apartments periodically, like throughout this build, is that it helps to activate these areas of the build itself. So you'll see NPC sins like go into their apartments like you would in any other late night apartment build. And that was something that I really wanted to happen because it just adds a lot more activity, and I didn't want that activity of these NPC sims just to be focused in one specific area when we do get to the residential complex, which is not something we're going to be getting to today. We'll be getting to that in part 3. I mentioned this before in part 1 of this build, but I placed a lot of objects just as placeholders and just as a reminder for myself to actually use that object. And with the Ripperdoc laboratories, I suppose, there was a lot that I wanted to accomplish within this build, and that's why I have a lot of objects placed there. So I of course have the Simbot creation station. I obviously want to incorporate that kind of skill building object within this slot, because to me it makes a lot of sense to have it here, especially if I've got like a Ripperdoc themed little structure going on. I also wanted the sim enhancer object from university. To me, that looks most like the chairs that you see in Cyberpunk 2077 Ripperdoc offices, so I really wanted that implemented here. It is an ominous object. It is kind of creepy in a way, well, in the context that I'm using it in at least, and so it was definitely something that I wanted to include here. There's also the science testing station, which I feel helps to support the operations, or at least like in the sense that I am trying to make this look like a Ripperdoc office. So I wanted to make sure that it was included here. And of course, I wanted to include the ambitions workbench as well, because you can create a Simbot from the ambitions expansion pack. And so, you know, even though it's a totally different version from the Simbots you make from the Into the Future expansion pack, it was something that I wanted to include here because it makes sense to you guys. So yeah, a lot of objects were included within this build, and I'm really designing this particular apartment lot so that it's a place where you do want your Sims to live in first and foremost, because they have access to all of these skill building objects literally at their fingertips. And also it would be a lot that you can have your Sims visit as well. So if you have a Sim that is looking to build a robot, for example, and they just don't have this space in their home lot, they can just visit this lot and continue on with their project. I haven't done any testing with it myself, so I don't know how feasible that is, or if like they'll be able to continue making the Simbot. I'm not too sure on the gameplay mechanics on that one, but the possibility is there, and there's an opportunity to visit this lot and to access these skill building objects that may be hard to find in the rest of the SimCity world because they don't make sense to exist anywhere else. That's kind of why I had built the observatory the way that I did, with it having like a huge underground Raccoon City style, I should say, laboratory underneath the rabbit hole object. And like it gives you, the player, access to objects where it would make sense to see them, and it isn't like placed haphazardly or just randomly, so to speak. So yeah, I wanted to make sure to include those objects here because I feel like they make the most sense. It makes sense for the vision that I was trying to achieve, and gameplay wise, like it also encourages players to actually visit this lot for more than just residential purposes. So really happy with the way it turned out here. You'll see me place some like hanging lights in the alleyways. I used a mix of those hanging light bulb lights and also the hanging jar lights. Both of those came from the Sims 3 store. I don't know which sets they came from. I'm pretty sure one of them though came from the I don't want to call it the hipster one. It came from, oh my goodness, why am I losing it now? It came from one of the sets that had a gazebo in it, and it was like a very nature one. Like one of the hanging lights came from there. Anyways, I wanted to point those out because I really like the look of wires, especially for this lot. It just gives it like a certain busyness and a certain sense of chaos that I don't want to see in other lots. So now that I have the opportunity to do that here, I'm absolutely taking full advantage of it. And that's why really that I decided to go outside of the Sims 3 store and download the telegraph pole and and its corresponding hanging wires, is because I knew that that was a look that I really wanted to go for in this particular lot, and I can actually see myself using the telegraph pole and its hanging wires for other lots as well. But more on that much later on in this series, because we'll see if that plan actually pans out. Within the Ripperdoc like floors itself, I wanted it to really be confined to the lower level, the courtyard level, and then also the upper level as well. I wanted it to be like a 3-story kind of situation, and I also wanted it to be very private as well, which kind of made it really difficult to find window placement opportunities here and there, which is really why I decided to surround it with some rooftop outdoor balcony space. It was a very difficult structure to kind of envision, but I do think that I eventually was able to achieve a structure that was both very private and at the same time very believable within this particular setting here. But yeah, the Ripperdoc office, the Ripperdoc laboratory is something that spans more than one floor, and that was something that was totally intentional, with of course like the entrance being that super secret lower entrance from the courtyard side of the Cyberpunk block. So yeah, I to really help differentiate the Ripperdoc laboratory from the other spaces within the slot, I landed on a really nice pastel / hospital blue, and so I used that as much as I could throughout the entire lot, whether it was through lighting choices or little accent highlights here and there. It was a really sterile blue, and blue is my favorite color, you guys, but this one was like super sterile, and I really leaned into it. Like, I felt like you could see this kind of shade of blue in actual hospitals, so I decided to lean all the way into it. And especially in this context, like with it contrasted with all the metal and silver, it was just looking very sterile here, and I felt like it suited this space entirely. And so that's the color that I decided to make the accent color throughout the entire Ripperdoc office. I think it really works very well, and it was a blue that I applied to some objects as well. Like, there's this object from Showtime, and it's a wall placement object, and it's technically called like neon lights, but it's actually not a light object. It's in the miscellaneous decor object. It's weird because it totally gives off, it totally looks like it gives off a glow, I should say. Like, it fools me every time. Like, I think I can shift click and adjust the intensity and whatnot, but it doesn't have that function. So it's like a light object, but it's not a light object. And I'm like 90% sure it came with the Showtime expansion pack. Anyways, it's one of those objects that I've never used, and this was like really the only opportunity that I have found that I was able to use it, so I was very happy with that. I think in the last episode I mentioned that I'm a bit of a completionist at heart, so to my crazy self, I think that I need to use every object in the game at least once. So for me, this like helped to check off that box there. It would be interesting to like audit my world and my lots just to see like which objects I haven't used. But anyways, I'm not getting that intense with this series. This is supposed to be a fun series, not something that gets tripped up in those details. But anyways, love those objects. There's something that I will continue to use throughout the entirety of the slot. I believe I did use like a version of them in the last build when we did the, in the first part when we were working on the bar area. So, you know, now that they're on my radar, it's definitely something I'm going to continue to use throughout at least this build, but probably for future builds as well, wherever it calls for it. The Ripperdoc laboratories itself, it has a reception, I guess like a bit of an ICU, if we want to call it that, and also of course like the robotics laboratory itself. Like I said, it spans a couple of floors above it, and so I decided to also have a little more fun with the objects that I had at hand. Specifically, there were some objects that came with the movie stuff pack that, like specifically the superhero sets. So I eventually, like you'll see on screen, you'll see me use the big ray gun, which is a light object, and also I used the, oh my goodness, the computer object. It's not a computer object, but it's the, I think it's a dresser actually. It's kind of a weird classification. They should have just made it a decor object. But yeah, I used those as well, which I felt suited the space. And then I actually ended up using the dance sphere as well. To me, it just kind of, it beckons back to older Sims references, of course. So you've got like the Sims 2 being referenced in that, like with the dance sphere. And to me, like it feels like you would experiment and like put your robot through that kind of a dance sphere experience. But like just to test out their movement capabilities and whatnot. But it's also, of course, like an old Contact movie reference as well. So I really felt that it suited the space, so that like was able to consume an entire floor, thankfully, because I was sort of running out of ideas, and I knew that I wanted the top of the structure to actually be an observatory, and I'll talk a little bit more on that a little later on. But yeah, what really saved my skin for this particular build of the Ripperdoc laboratories, I keep calling it an office for whatever reason, was the Into the Future objects, and also a little bit of the Showtime objects as well. And yeah, using those, using certain light objects to like highlight on the ground. Thankfully, we've got like a light tube that we're able to place on the ground. It helped to really, it really helped to elevate the space and to really make it feel futuristic, which was exactly what I was going for. In this build, you'll also notice me changing the light color to cyan for the Ripperdoc office. Again, I know that it is obvious that this is intentional, but I didn't want to overwhelm the space with making it all cyan lights, because that would be obnoxious to actually play in. So I decided to try to balance it out as best as I could in spaces that I thought were appropriate to be able to handle the cyan lighting. So for example, in the reception, I used a blend of white colored lights and also some cyan colored lights. Same thing for the ICU unit, I suppose. I used a mixture of both cyan and white color lighting, just so that one doesn't drown out the other. Whereas in the darker spaces on the upper floors, because it is a little more ominous and mysterious, I decided to use the cyan colored lights, just because I feel like the cyan colored lights are a lot darker. Now, if you're here for part one, you'll know that I've really been big on using different colored lights to denote different kind of moods and all of that. And so on the exteriors, I tend to use a lot more of the orange lights, because I feel like it gives a grungier feel. And so to juxtapose that and to really show that this is indeed a different space on the lot here, the cyan lights really came in handy to show that this is indeed a much different space. And you're going to continue seeing me use different colored lights to denote different kind of spaces within this lot build, and actually within this part as well. Eventually we'll get on to, well, okay, we'll talk a little bit about the massage parlor, but I use pink lights for it, obviously. But yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about the massage parlor a little later on in this video, because that has got a little bit of a funny story to it. But anyways, lighting is super important to actually capture the cyberpunk feel, in my opinion. And so when I am choosing the lighting, especially like within the Ripperdoc laboratories, it is really half the deco that I need to use within the Ripperdoc laboratory itself. Like I don't need to do too much outside of selecting the right lighting and making sure that it's the right color, because it does like most of the work for me. And I really appreciate that on one hand, and on the other hand, I feel like I might be understanding the cyberpunk look and feel kind of incorrectly here, in terms of it just being like grungier, metal, and neon lights. That's really what it has been boiled down to for me from my understanding of the references that I'm using and all of that. Of course, I'm not taking into account composition or any of those other important details, but if I was to boil down Cyberpunk feels, looks and feels down to a science here, I would say you need metal, you need neon lighting, and you need some sort of a grunge factor to it. So in this case, I've been using rusty metals in that case. Especially like if you're doing like a Dogtown inspired build, which is what we did for the bar in the first part of this build. I also decided to add in the time machine in the slot, like the time machine from the Ambitions expansion pack. You can find it in the debug mode. I added it just for fun and just to also, again, give this space a little more utility. Like I mentioned before, I think that players are going to want to have their households live in the slot for its access to all of these excellent skill building objects, but I also think that players are also going to want to visit the slot for that very same purpose as well if they don't have access to some of the skill building objects that you normally would. So yeah, I was very happy with the way that the Ripperdoc laboratories turned out here, and with its utility, I think that it is just really, yeah, I think it's just like an excellent build all around for the northeastern structure, and it's something that I really wanted to be a focal point of this particular lot, since we are taking direct inspiration from Cyberpunk 2077. Of course, we're going to have like a Ripperdoc laboratory or a Ripperdoc doctor's office. So to me, it was very obvious and something that I really wanted to highlight. So I have no problem making it an entire structure, as we see right here. But it's not the entire structure, it's just most of the structure, because the top floor of this northeastern structure is actually an observatory. And I decided that I really wanted to be still a part of the lab, but something that is completely different at the same time. And so I contrasted the rest of the lab by trying to make the observatory feel a lot more cozier. In fact, the inspiration that I was using for the observatory, at least to capture the coloring and everything, was from The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. And so for me, that was a I don't want to call it a dungeon, but it was a space in the game. It was a level in the game that I felt was something that was very wondrous and something that was very impactful, especially at the time that you were playing Majora's Mask, because you were like going through like a dark and dingy area, and then you come into this bright observatory. And so I really wanted to kind of capture that here, in that you're going up these dark and dingy laboratories, and you're coming into this really bright observatory at the top of the lab. And yeah, it was kind of interesting trying to capture that feel, and I really wanted to match the colors in Majora's Mask, because when looking at the observatory itself, I actually, you know, objectively, like from a design perspective, I don't like anything that they were doing with it. Like maybe the floors were okay, but like the wallpapers and stuff, it was very, it would be too obnoxious and it wouldn't translate well into The Sims 3 at the very least. But, you know, looking back on it, I'm not too sure if I stand by the design in of itself, but the look and feel and the mood that it was conveying was certainly something that I wanted to add in here. So I wanted to use that inspiration in that kind of retrospect. And again, half of it is done by the lighting itself. So I was using the actual blue colored lights and the actual purple color lights just to kind of capture the same colors that we would see in the Majora's Mask observatory. And also tying it into the story of it sitting on top of the Ripperdoc laboratories below was another challenge that was added into the mix as well. But yeah, I tried to make it cozier by filling it up with some pillows so you can just like kind of chill and look at the stars and just kind of like sit back. That would be kind of the idea. Again, we're playing the game in our imaginations here, but you'd still be able to use the bench, of course, and the different what do you call it, the telescopes as well. In fact, I almost think it would be a good idea to put a bubble blowing station in there, so I'm going to write that one down in my notebook as something that I will consider doing, because that could, again, like just add another activity. Although I was planning to add a bubble blowing bar in part 3, But anyways, well, I'll see if it works in this particular space here, because it might actually fit this space a little better. To access the observatory, you can access it either through the lab, so you have to go through reception, get signed in and all that, or you can access it from the rooftop, with the rooftop gangways just kind of located throughout the entire build here. And as we continue building out today's part, and also in the next part, you're going to really see those little makeshift rooftop gangways kind of come about, and what kind of pathing that they have here. And really, I'm trying to offer unique experiences for Sims that do want to explore the rooftops. But yeah, another point of the observatory that I could edit is maybe the floor tile could span the entire space as opposed to just the center of it. You see, one thing that I'm also noticing here is that with these stairs, I could probably replace that with a ladder. I've been meaning to add more ladders within this particular build, and I haven't done any ladders in this part, and I don't know if I'll do it in the next part because I've yet to film that or even construct that. But I definitely didn't do any ladders in the first part, and I feel like ladders would make a huge difference in terms of capturing the cyberpunk aesthetic that I am going for. So I might actually add a ladder here and figure out an opportunity to use them in the exterior somewhere within this build. Speaking of the exterior wallpaper of the observatory is mismatched on purpose. I really wanted to show that the corrugated metal and the siding looked like that they were kind of welded together to just create this makeshift structure, just to add another indoor space on top of the lab, just kind of on the fly. So that was really the story behind that, and something that was intentional. Again, because of the wallpapers and because of the form that the structure took, I felt like I was able to actually get away with it. And because I placed a bunch of fences and stuff for the outdoor spaces that this structure has, I feel like it adds enough intrigue and enough of a dynamic to make the exterior structure not feel like a blank wall. Sitting just immediately outside of the observatory, I decided to add in like an outdoor artist studio. I really, at this point of the build, I really started wanting to tell the story of who the rooftop dwellers were. And so in order to convey that, I felt that the outdoor artist studio was great at kind of telling the story that there is some sort of a graffiti artist, and this is sort of where they hang out, is by the observatory and the outdoor spaces kind of surrounding it. And this is where they practice and all this and all that. There's so much graffiti art, and actually so many posters and everything, and if you can hear that, that might be my cat just running amok during an audio recording here. So anyways, the story that I wanted to tell was really about where all of this graffiti artwork is coming from. And yeah, so in order to do that, I needed to have a couple of skill objects that really allows Sims to actually practice art. And even though with the street art skill, you just pretty much tag walls and floors like wherever you can find space, it's still, I still wanted to have a little bit of a creative space to it. So yeah, this is really the beginning point of where I'm trying to tell that story of where those rooftop dwellers are. Also surrounding the northeast building that we are working on here, I decided to also put in a little area that kind of denotes like this is sort of like I don't want to say like gang territory, but this is where all the like teenagers and kids kind of hang out, like with the pinball machine and with some of the fire pits and whatnot. Speaking of which, if you are seeing some bonfire objects that you haven't seen before, it is likely custom content. I just don't remember where I actually got them from. And then, of course, like another rooftop dweller or perhaps just a resident is the bird lady who's raising chickens. And I have that chicken coop object from the Sims 3 store. And I have to say, you guys, like that chicken coop, it makes a lot of noise. So whenever I'm building, whenever I'm playtesting the lot, I should say, I can always hear like chickens clucking and whatnot. And it's kind of funny. It adds to the chaos and to the ambiance here. And really, I don't mind. So it was just like an opportunity to really tell these kind of different stories. And I'm going to continue to develop them as we continue to build out this lot and to build it out in part 3. I have to say though, I was a little reluctant giving the artist studio some space because, and I hate to give away spoilers here, but the last lot that we are going to be doing in Far East Square is actually going to be an art gallery. And in that, I do want to have some art skill opportunities and like skill space. What am I trying to say here? Not skill space, but I want to make space within the art gallery to actually, you know, work on those different creative skills, whether it's sculpting or jewelry making or just, you know, regular painting. So total spoilers for the last build for Far East Square, but I just felt the need to reveal that because I was a little reluctant actually giving the graffiti artists their own space here, because some of those objects are, yes, going to be repeated within that art gallery build that I do, but that is way down in the future and I probably won't even mention it again for another couple of videos. So that is spoilers on this channel. I did use a lot of posters on the exterior of the wall just to kind of cover up the blank walls. That was something that was really bugging me about this particular structure, is that in order to the trade-off for wanting it to be a very private space and like there's a secret Ripperdoc laboratory, is that I didn't want to have any windows. And so because I didn't want to have any windows, it left a lot of blank walls, and the wallpaper and such can only do so much on the exterior. So I was adding posters and graffiti work left, right, and center here. I'm totally fatigued out by these objects. I hope you guys aren't, and I hope that by me saying it, it doesn't make you guys fatigued by them. But it looks great, don't get me wrong, but it's just a lot of overuse, and just with the access and the willingness on my end to download even more stuff, like it's just going outside of my comfort zone for just, you know, one lot here. But yeah, I use a lot of posters to cover up those blank walls. It gives it that city grungy feel, that cyberpunk feel that I'm going for. And I still love the way that it turned out. It's just that if I haven't used them throughout the rest of the lot so much that I would not be fatigued by them. I did create another sunken entrance, and this is for a seedy massage parlor in the southeast building that you'll see me eventually start to work on. And I was a little jinxed with building out this seedy massage parlor. And by that I mean I completely forgot to film the footage of me building it out and like decorating the inside and everything. And I was also a little jinxed with taking pictures on it. Now don't worry, I do have the final results taken and everything. It's just that I forgot to do it in a playthrough as I was wrapping up this lot, and so I had to reload my game and take the screenshots of the finished results. So I was a little jinxed with the CD massage parlor, and the vibe that I was going for with that is that it was going to be very, you know, one of those like shady, seedy massage parlors. I don't know how well I can describe it without getting demonetized here, but there's a lot of pink lights used, a lot of pink neon lights here used, and a lot of that inspiration is coming again from Cyberpunk for the futuristic finishes. And yeah, it was a space that has a massage table in it, which is something that came with the Sunlit Tides world set, the gold version, if I remember correctly. I feel like I'm just a running ad here for the Sims 3 store here, you guys, which is kind of funny. But yeah, I didn't get any of the footage, which kind of sucked. But I also wanted to point out here that to cover up the terrain deformities, I opted to use the foundation walls because yeah, I decided like the choices that I made for this lot really kind of complicated things. And whenever things get a little complicated, I try to cover it up with foundation walls. That seems to be my go-to, it seems. But anyways, that was the solution that I opted for. And if you guys have a better solution, you know what to do. Just drop that comment there. But yeah, what the foundation walls allowed me to do is it gave me a space to place more telegraph poles and wires and hanging lights and all that. And honestly, like, I wish there was a better way to control terrain deformities, or maybe a more creative way to kind of hide them, but this is kind of what I was discovering was needed. And even though I really wanted I really do want the courtyard to be a very chaotic space. I want this entire lot build to be a very chaotic and crowded space. The foundation wall that I used to cover up all the deformities I needed to cover really just adds to that chaos, almost to the point where it's like too much clutter for my liking. But that could just be me. That could just be me being a neat freak and averted to cluttered spaces and cluttered gameplay. So I'll let you guys kind of be the judge on that. But regardless of my own feelings there, the opportunity to use more telegraph poles and wires and hanging lights and such, I felt really at least brought the area together. Like it kind of conveyed that this was a section of the courtyard that was actually a little more utilitarian. It was where a lot of your wires and your your electrical wire and your electrical system kind of starts out from here, kind of like an open substation in a weird way. I don't know where I was going with it, to be completely honest. I just wanted to add more telegraph poles, more wires, and more lights, and I feel like in this space it really does take it very well. I just don't know if it's too crowded or if I'm just being overly critical on it. It's definitely not on my list of things to edit off camera when I go to film part 3, but it is definitely something that I will take into consideration when filming the Far East edit episode, which is again another future thing that I am talking about here. Next, we'll move on to working on the southeast building. And I needed to change things up for the southeast building. And what I had decided to do, and again, it's taking a lot of inspiration from Yukio's builds that I have mentioned countless times in part 1 and this part as well. And rightfully so. Like, those two builds were incredible, and they do deserve to be reinterpreted in the future and in future games and all that. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself here. The approach with the southeast building took a lot of inspiration from Yukio's builds, and I decided to make them more of a series of attached buildings, just to give the cyberpunk plot a little bit more density. And so everything else that I have built up until this point, it feels more like a standalone structure in of itself. Like, we've got the Dogtown bar that has the gym that sits on top of it, and then we've got the mechanic shop with then we've got the mechanic shop with the apartments that sit on top of it, and then we just did the Ripperdoc building, which took up the entire structure's entity, really, with the exception, of course, of the observatory that just kind of sits on top. So yeah, I really needed to start adding some density into this lot, and it really begins with the southeast structure here, and I'm really happy to get that done and taken care of, because it does, again, it adds more personality into this lot build, and it was always the intention to make it feel like a very dense place, and like it was a housing project that just turned into a disaster. So yeah, that's really the direction I was going in, and this southeast building really helps to tie in that vision into reality here. The new challenge, of course, here is working within a confined space. As I had done in part 1, I really outlined the amount of space I wanted each of the 6 structures to take up on this lot, and so the new challenge here is really working with a confined space, since I wanted it to seem more like a series of narrower structures. And you know, challenge accepted. I actually kind of excel at working with narrow and cozier spaces, it seems, or at least I find a lot of joy in it. At least I'll let you guys be the judge of whether it was successfully achieved or not. Anyways, within this little within the southeast corner here, the first structure that I built is actually going to be a laundromat with an outdoor clothesline. And I kind of approached this this entire project a little weirdly, because I had to build out each building, one attached building at a time in the southeast corner here. But anyways, the first one, the first structure, the first building, I don't even know what to call these, the first tenant, I guess, that I decided to build out is the laundromat. And I really wanted it to have an outdoor clothesline that just sits on the rooftop area, the open air rooftop. It just gives an extra purpose to send Sims there, and it just allows there to be more action in different points on this lot. So it always feels like there's something moving or something going on this lot, which is what I really wanted to intend to achieve with this lot build. I don't want it to be a serene space. I want it to be a chaotic concrete jungle. And so, you know, adding these little things to do in these nooks and crannies is really where I think that I'm going to be able to achieve that all. Now, I'm going to have to do a little bit of play testing after the end of part 3, just in regards to the laundry and making sure that your Sims are actually taking it to the laundromat that's across the lot and that they are able to hang their clothes up properly. Because as soon as you put a lot of barriers, like between your hamper and like your dirty clothes to your hamper, and then barriers between the hamper and the washing machine, and then like pathing barriers is really what I'm trying to say here, from your washer to your dryer or the clothesline. That's when things kind of get a little messed up in The Sims 3 when it comes to laundry. So that's going to be some playtesting that I am going to be very diligent about doing, and curious to see like how that's going to hold up here. So yeah, that's the first tenant in the southeast corner here. The second southeast corner tenant is really an urban dojo, but they have apartments on top of it, like in container home style apartments. And the container home apartments, again, we're going to be they are going to be NPC doors. Like I said earlier, this is a late night apartment build, so I'm going to assign those as NPC doors. So yeah, NPCs will actually go in and I guess live in these apartments if they spawn and choose them. So yeah, these container home apartments are great for just, again, adding in an extra node of activity and really allowing this lot to come alive. This is again going to be something that is going to be play tested by the end of part 3. In fact, the end of part 3 is really where I'm going to be play testing a lot of stuff and likely making some edits after the fact, just because it's a very complex lot. There's a lot going on, and I just want to make sure that Sims are able to do everything that I intend for them to do. Like, I want them to be able to do laundry. I want the NPC spawns that come in to be able to go up the stairs and into their apartments. I don't think that will be an issue in this lot per se, but if I don't test it, I'm not going to know for certain. So that's kind of my headspace when thinking about that. Moving on, I will say that not all apartments are going to be container home style apartments. Like, you'll see in this part as well that there are going to be apartment spaces that aren't container homes, and that's going to be completely fine. I'm essentially using apartment spaces in this lot because, first and foremost, this is a late night apartment lot, but I'm using it as a way to fill space and to give some height. So even though I'm not like the hugest fan of set dressing, at least the set dressing is somewhat useful, or can be useful if your game spawns an NPC that lives in one of these spaces. I will, however, give some spoilers for part 3. It seems like this is the episode for spoilers, so if you've been itching for them, this is the episode to watch. So for part 3, the livable apartment space that you, the player, are actually going to play your household in is in fact going to be a container home. And I've got some cool ideas for that. Of course, Yukio's video there is going to be coming in as a primary source of inspiration, but as The Sims 3 continues to prove time and time and again, I don't have a whole lot of industrial objects to work with. So it is going to be an interesting build to say the very least, and whether I successfully reinterpret it backwards into The Sims 3 is a whole other story, and we'll just kind of see how successful that will be in the future. Anyways, I totally got sidetracked there. I did want to add within this block another rooftop space that the makeshift wooden gangways connect to, and you're gonna really see me go through an ordeal trying to connect those gangways. In my head, I felt that it was more important to have the shape of the courtyard more so set in stone and prioritized rather than these gangway objects. So I'm going to be doing some weird things with foundations and walls and trying to give some sort of a pillar just so I can add a floor on a level that wouldn't normally be supported after you delete the wall, etc., etc. So I used that little trick there. But yeah, I prioritized the shape of the courtyard first, and to be fair, I didn't know like what the shape of this particular structure was going to be. I just knew the footprint that I wanted it to take up, which is a lot of the work that we did in part 1 of this particular lot build. The really unfortunate thing about the rooftop space on the southeast corner here is that I didn't really decorate it because, to be honest, like I forgot. I was also pretty much done in my head at this point. I was ready to just move on, and I didn't have like a vision or anything that I really wanted to feature in that space. And so I may go back and do it off camera before I actually do the part 3 editing, but it doesn't make it into the screenshots anyways. So you're going to see a pretty empty space there for that wooden gangway connecting across the courtyard into the southeast corner structure here. Another thing as well with this side of the lot is that I don't want a lot of lower level space on this side, unlike what I did on the other side of the lot. So right next to, like, it's right next to some sidewalk pathways. I wanted to feel a little more open and a little more pedestrian friendly per se. Like, I don't want it to feel cluttered, and I didn't want to I don't want to put a lot of action on that pedestrian pathway. It should just be like a little cut through that you get from one street into like the boulevard that leads into downtown, which is Main Street. So I'm still kind of feeling out what that vision is going to be. Of course, it's going to be completed in part 3, so we'll just kind of see what we'll be doing there. But what I end up doing is I just put in some outdoor barbecue and outdoor seating on that ground level there, and also some pillars as well, just holding up the structure that's sitting on the higher parts of that's sitting on the courtyard. So that's I kept it very simple in this case, but I am open to seeing how it evolves as I go to make part 3. And of course, I haven't filmed part 3 yet, so I can't really tease any spoilers there. Each time I build one of these structures, I have to work on the exteriors first, and then I rendezvous back and finish off the interiors. And it's especially important for this cyberpunk lot for me because it really, like, I really needed to know what the form of the block or of the structure is going to be before I actually go ahead and detail it. Like, I wouldn't be able to finish the interior for the laundromat before figuring out what the attached building right next to it was actually going to look like and how it was going to impact each other. It's a great way to avoid duplicating work. However, it's a process that I have had to repeat for every building within this lot. So it has certainly added on to the time, to say the very least here. But you know, it's a process that has proven time and time again to be very impactful and very aesthetically pleasing when I do it. Speaking of the laundromat, I kept it very basic. I decided not to go the grungy route with it. I feel like we have enough grunge and grit within the rest of this lot here. There's a seedy massage parlor, for goodness sakes, that I didn't film, but I did take pictures of, so you'll see it at the end here of this video. But like, I have a seedy I have a seedy massage parlor. We've got a robotics lab and Ripperdoc area. There's also a grungy bar as well. So like, there was enough grunge and grit to this lot already, and I do plan to add more. And especially like when we look at the rooftop spaces, like the grunge and grit is going to be found all over the place for this lot. And I don't necessarily want this lot to it's very hard because I did use the Slum City build from Yukio as a direct inspiration for it. However, this isn't necessarily the slums per se. This isn't a rundown area. This is actually a very vibrant area. It's just completely chaotic, and you know, it's very hard to depict that versus like a rundown area, because they share a lot of the same themes, or at least I have interpreted that they share a lot of the same themes. But yeah, this was very hard to try to find a balance with. And so with the laundromat and with some of the other tenants in this particular corner of the lot, I decided to make them look more like they're upkept businesses. Speaking of which, the third tenant here is actually a geologist or a gem maker. Basically, listen, you guys, when your household has moved into the slot, you're pretty much paying for convenient access to nearly every skill object under the sun at this point. So the third tenant is a geologist, and to be quite honest with you guys, I don't exactly like that I made it like a geologist slash jewelry store in a way. You know, feel free to suggest something new here. I just wanted to use that object. I was kind of running a little low on ideas, and I was like, okay, you know, the guy comes here, crushes and polishes rocks and sells them. That's the story with the third tenant anyways. The apartments that sit on top of it, though, are a little weirdly shaped, but I really wanted to add the height to this particular tenant here. And and yeah, you know, considering that this is cyberpunk inspired, which is a dystopian take on the future, you know, weirdly shaped apartments are probably going to be the norm everywhere you go. I also added in some old crickety stairs. Again, we're giving it the grunge here, but we're not giving the business the grunge treatment. So again, giving it that rundown look and staying true to the cyberpunk form. And yes, there are some nice areas in Cyberpunk 2077, some really futuristic upkept areas, but that's clearly like not where I'm taking my inspiration from, because I don't feel like it. I didn't feel inspired by it. So it was a creative choice I made, which is the pageant way of sharing that thought. But yeah, that is something that I had decided to make the choice going into this lot. I'm pretty bad at actually adding in vending machines, and I should probably add in more throughout this entire lot. Specifically, I'm thinking like within the barbecue area that just sits directly across from the pedestrian pathway into Main Street. And I don't know why I'm bad at that, because vending machines really do add a nice urban ambience to these lots. And, you know, it's always been at the back of my mind that I should be adding in more vending machines here and there, and you can recolor them too, and they produce some good lights. So yeah, I should really, you know, this is the reminder for myself to go back and look at opportunities to add in more vending machines. I just feel like it adds another point of interaction as well for your Sims. So yeah, that's kind of my line of thinking with that. The last tenant within the southeast corner is actually a bakery. And although you can't run the bakery yourself as a business, although, you know, there's nothing stopping you from editing the lot yourself and, you know, doing that approach, I did want to add in the bakery object from the Sims 3 store. It came with the Indulgent Bakery set, if I remember correctly, and it allows you to bake all kinds of goods. I just added it here so that your Sims can pop into the bakery, I suppose, bake whatever and you know, keep it moving from there. You don't have to make it a business if you don't want to, but the object is there for your Sims to use, and that was more so the purpose there. Plus I also feel like this corner deserved a nice little bakery, so I had decided to keep it there. There's also a renegade lemonade stand that's kind of showing up in the courtyard as well, if you guys didn't notice. And I plan on using that. I don't know where I'm going to use it, but I feel like I really want to use it in the courtyard. So in part 3, hopefully I'll find a nice space for it. Otherwise, you might just find a lemonade stand that's floating around in part 1 and part 2 that disappears without a trace in part 3. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, the southeast corner here, it really blends the cyberpunk grunge with some upkept businesses in between here and there. And that was really what my aim and my goal was for this particular lot, or sorry, for this particular corner of the lot, is really introducing some upkept businesses in the area and just to increase the density. And that's really what I had set out to achieve. And even though there are some science fiction elements to it and some cyberpunk elements here and there, it also still tells the story that there are there's some really good there's some really good upkept businesses in the area that are still around and that haven't been swallowed up by the cyberpunk themes entirely. So that's yeah, that was my aim for this particular corner. I also wanted to add some height here and there, because right now it's either the second or the third tenant, I completely forget which, and I am not about to click on my screen here to get those clicks in the audio, but one of them is the tallest structure in the entire lot right now, and although it'll likely be outdone when we get into part 3, I just wanted to add in a little more height variance as we go about here, and doing that little tiny pop of height on a narrow building was a great way to do it. And as we get further along into the project, like the lots that sit directly south of this are really going to complement this lot well. I have some big plans for those, so I can't wait for you guys to see this entire neighborhood, this entire project really come about. The Far East Square neighborhood is just one more lot away from being complete, and then the adjacent neighborhoods that sit right next to it have their own look and feel and their own story to tell. So I'm very excited to start getting into that kind of storytelling too. As I begin to wrap things up for this part of the cyberpunk build, I have to say, like, things are going to start wrapping up quite quickly in terms of the particular corner that I'm building out here. As I had mentioned in part 1, just due to the size, the nature, and really the amount of detail that this particular lot really demands in nearly every corner, I've had to expand this speed build out into 3 parts, which is not something that I'm a huge fan of doing. So next week we are going to continue with this cyberpunk block build, as I feel like we need to finally finish it off in the 3rd part there. And I am very excited to get that 3rd part out to you guys, because because there are some cool ideas that I have in the back of my mind. There are some different lot ideas, and I've also got some more ideas now on different activities and spaces that we can create some rooftop destinations at, just to make sure that the gateways get used by either your Sims or other Sims, I suppose, because there's a certain object that I'm going to add in that every Sim likes to use for whatever reason, especially butlers. But I'll just tease you guys with that one, as it will make a pretty good guessing game, I'm sure. This lot as it stands right now, as it has been built at this time, is really starting to turn into a masterpiece. And I do credit it to the details that I am taking the time to really put into it. Like, I would put this one up there with my Goth Manor build, which I feel is the best build that I have done on the channel so far. And the reason why is just the form first and foremost, but also the amount of detail and the amount of storytelling I was able to achieve in the Goth Manor build. Way back when I was doing that. That was just like one of those cases where I was just like, this is really the bee's knees. And I'm sure that by the time I am done part 3, I'm going to feel the very same about this lot as well. I really love the way that things are turning out. I think that the science fiction and cyberpunk themes that I'm using and the references that I have been using have served me extremely well in this endeavor. And I'm really excited to just kind of end things off in the last part of this particular build. Speaking of which, the next part we are going to be tackling the southwest corner and the last remaining buildings there. Like I mentioned before, I have a couple of ideas, but I will finally be able to build out the container home apartment unit that your Sims are actually going to be living in. And I'm quite excited to do that because I feel like with Yukio's reference at my fingertips there, I'll be able to reinterpret something that is, well, that's pretty cool. First and foremost, that's always been the name of the game here. But yeah, I am quite excited for making that attempt and just kind of seeing how that goes. I don't think I have to do anything more complicated with the terrain, but hey, I have been Ron before, so hopefully I won't be overcomplicating the final stretch here as we finish out the Cyberpunk build. Now, with all of that said, if the tours aren't already playing, then feel free to stick around for the tour for this part 2. I've only included screenshots from what we have built today, so that's really all that we'll be showing. However, at the end of part 3 and the next speed build episode, I'll certainly round things out by doing screenshots of absolutely everything. So I am quite excited for that. Plus, I'll do some night shots as well, because I think that this place really looks cool at nighttime, as it obviously should with all of these neon lights here and there. Anyways, I am going to take another moment here just to say thank you so much for watching this episode. And if you've enjoyed this episode, then feel free to like this video and consider subscribing if you haven't already. And if there is something that I have missed, or if you have a burning suggestion that you want to leave, feel free to use that comment box and comment options accordingly. You guys are more than welcome to provide feedback on any of my projects here, and that's really what makes them better as we go along. So yeah, and you know, I do incorporate feedback for for edit episodes whenever I get around to editing an entire neighborhood. Anyways, I've rambled on far too long. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next sandbox.